I never imagined that the ministry that promised to make me a woman of fire would one day be the same place God would warn me to flee from. My name is Sister Adesuwa James, a wife and mother of 3 beautiful children. And for 7 years I served faithfully under a prophetic ministry that everyone in my community feared. It started innocently. A friend invited me to one of their Friday fire nights. The moment I entered the hall, the atmosphere was charged. People were falling under power, prophecies were flowing, and the prophet called out names and dates with terrifying accuracy. I was amazed. I had never seen anything like that in all my years as a Christian. After the service, the prophet walked straight to me and said, "Woman, God has been waiting for you. If you submit fully, your destiny will open." I was shaking. I believed every word. Weeks later, I joined the ministry. At first, everything looked spiritual. Long fastings, intense deliverance sessions, midnight prayers. But slowly, something began to change. We were told not to take major decisions without asking the prophet first. We were told to sow seed before traveling, before starting a business, even before confronting a family issue. We were warned that leaving the ministry could invite spiritual attacks. Fear became our foundation, not faith. The prophet's words became louder than the word of God. I watched as sincere believers slowly surrendered their minds. I watched as marriages broke because the prophet saw wrong partners. I watched as people fasted until they fainted because God said so through the man of God. One day, I began to feel an unusual heaviness in my spirit. No joy, no peace, just control, just fear, just confusion. I asked the prophet if I could take a break from the deliverance department because of my health. He stared at me and said, "If you leave your assignment, your life will scatter. The demons you fought will return." His words pierced me like a sword. That night I cried to God, "Father, is this you, or have I been following a voice that is not yours?" That same night, I had a dream. I saw myself standing in a room full of chains. One long chain was tied to my ankle. On the other end was the prophet, smiling. A voice behind me whispered, "Walk away before the chain tightens." I woke up trembling. My pillow was soaked with sweat. For the first time, I knew God was warning me. 2 weeks later, I gathered my courage and left the ministry quietly. No drama, no confrontation. I just walked away with my 3 children and my dignity, but the night I left, all hell broke loose. As soon as we got home, a strange coldness filled my bedroom. I felt a dark presence watching me. When I closed my eyes, I saw shadows moving. Voices began whispering my name. My heart raced violently. That night, I did not sleep. By midnight, something grabbed my leg and dragged me off the bed. I screamed, but no sound came out. I tried to call Jesus, but my tongue felt heavy. It was the beginning of attacks I had never known, and it was just the beginning. The night after I left the prophetic ministry, my life changed forever. For years I had heard testimonies of people who left and were attacked, but I always assumed it was fear or exaggeration. But what I was about to face was beyond anything I had ever imagined. Everything began with the voices, soft at first, like distant whispers calling my name. "Adesuwa, you cannot leave. You belong to us." I froze on my bed, clutching my pillow. My husband was asleep beside me, breathing peacefully. I didn't want to wake him because I feared he would think I was imagining things. The whispers grew louder. "Return, or suffer." I covered my ears, but the voices were inside me, not around me. By 1 a.m., it escalated. A dark figure appeared at the foot of my bed, tall, shadowy, featureless, but the hatred I felt coming from it was overwhelming. I tried to call the name of Jesus, but my jaw locked. I tried to sit up, but my body felt paralyzed. My heart was pounding like it wanted to break out of my chest. Suddenly, the figure jumped on me and pressed my chest with a force that felt like a truck. I gasped for air, fighting for every breath. Then I heard it speak, with a deep, growling voice, "You broke the covenant." In that moment, I realized leaving the ministry was not just a physical decision. Something spiritual had been activated. I felt my strength draining, my vision becoming blurry, my breath fading. My spirit was separating from my body. I saw myself lying on the bed, eyes open but lifeless. I saw my husband turning in his sleep, unaware of what was happening. Then suddenly, two dark creatures with chains appeared beside my bed. They looked like deformed humans with twisted limbs, long arms, and mouths that stretched unnaturally wide. One of them hissed, "Her signature is here. She belongs to us." Before I could scream, they grabbed my arms, and my spirit was pulled violently through the room wall like smoke. I found myself in a long, dark tunnel, deeper and darker than anything on earth. The air was thick, suffocating. Voices echoed all around. She obeyed the prophet, not God. She served fear, not truth. She is ours. I tried to scream, "Jesus!" but the demons laughed. They dragged me faster. The tunnel suddenly opened into a wide, burning chasm with flames shooting like exploding mountains. The heat was unbearable. The cries were horrifying. The presence of evil was overwhelming. Then I realized the terrible truth. I was at the gate of hell. A massive rusted door stood before me, taller than any building I had seen. Screams seeped out through the cracks. The demons threw me to the ground and pointed at the gate. "Enter! You signed the covenant through obedience." I shook my head violently. "No, no! I never made any covenant." They roared with laughter. "You submitted your soul through fear. You trusted a man above God. You obeyed rituals not found in the scriptures. You surrendered your authority." One demon bent close to my ear and whispered, "Ignorance is still agreement." Then the gate began to open slowly, releasing heat so intense my skin felt like it was peeling. I crawled backwards, screaming, but another demon kicked me forward. And then a violent wind swept through the place. Everything stopped. Every demon froze. Even the flames paused like they were held by an unseen force. A bright, blinding light appeared behind me. The ground trembled. Hell itself grew silent. Someone had arrived. When that blinding light appeared behind me, the demons dragging me stopped instantly, as if an invisible hand had gripped their throats. The entire place fell into a strange, eerie silence, but the light did not pull me out. Instead, it pushed me forward, deeper into hell, and I found myself in a place I never knew existed, the Chamber of Broken Covenants. It was a massive pit, shaped like a circle, stretching farther than my eyes could see. The walls were covered with scrolls and names, millions of them, written in a language my spirit somehow understood. The air was thick. The screams were unbearable. The smell, I cannot describe it. In that chamber were countless souls, chained by their hands and feet, their necks bound with glowing ropes that tightened whenever they tried to move. The torment here was different. It was not just fire, it was accusation. The souls cried things I will never forget. I didn't know. I thought it was prophetic instruction. They told me it was for my protection. I trusted the man of God, not demons. I fasted because I wanted God, not hell. Their cries echoed like thunder, full of regret and confusion. One woman beside me cried, "I only obeyed what my prophet said. Why am I here?" A demon smashed her mouth shut and hissed, "You obeyed him without testing his spirit. You submitted your will. You made his voice an idol. Ignorance does not cancel covenant." My entire body trembled. I whispered to myself, "I only obeyed the prophet. I didn't know it was wrong." Immediately, 3 demons turned to me with wicked smiles. They laughed in a way that shook the ground. One leaned close, its breath hotter than fire, and said, "That is exactly why you are here." Another demon added, "You signed it through obedience. You sealed it with fear. You renewed it with every seed, every instruction, every submission that God did not command." I covered my ears, crying, "No, I didn't sign anything. I didn't agree to anything." The demons roared with wicked amusement. Human agreements are written with ink. Spiritual agreements are written with obedience. My knees went weak. I fell to the ground, weeping. The chamber tightened. The ground began to crack. Chains rattled. Tormented souls screamed louder. I felt myself being dragged toward an open pit inside the chamber, a place where the flames were so intense my skin felt like it was melting even from afar. I knew. They were about to throw me inside. As I reached the edge of that burning abyss, I could see nothing but fire. That's when the blinding light behind me suddenly exploded in brightness. The flames froze, the demons fell flat, the walls trembled like they were afraid. A voice, stronger than thunder, gentler than water, filled the entire chamber. Enough! The moment I heard that voice, I knew. It was Jesus. Even hell recognized him. His presence alone shook the entire place. But he did not take my hand. He did not lift me. He stood there, looking at me with a mixture of pain and authority. The demons did not move. The flames did not rise. Hell itself was silent, waiting. Jesus walked toward me slowly, and every step he took sent ripples of light across the chamber. When he finally stood in front of me, he said words that pierced my soul. "Adesuwa, do you know why you are here?" I shook my head, broken and terrified. He stretched his hand toward the burning pit and said, "Come, let me show you the covenant you entered, without knowing." Then he lifted his hand, and the chamber began to change. When Jesus lifted his hand, the entire chamber of hell shook as if it recognized his authority. The flames bent away from him. The chains on the tormented souls rattled violently, like they were reacting to a presence they could not withstand. Jesus didn't look at the demons. He didn't look at the fire. He looked straight into me, into the deepest part of my soul. Then he said quietly, "What brought you here is not death. It is a covenant you never knew existed." Before I could speak, the atmosphere around us shifted. The chamber dissolved like smoke. Suddenly, I found myself standing in what looked like a heavenly courtroom, but the atmosphere was heavy with truth, not comfort. There was no fire here, no screaming souls, only a huge glowing scroll suspended in the air. Jesus pointed at it. "This is your covenant." The scroll opened by itself. My heart dropped. Inside, I saw something terrifying. My own name. Adesuwa James. Written beside rituals I had never signed with a pen, but had obeyed with my life. One by one, Jesus touched each line, and the words lit up. Total submission to the prophet's voice. Light flashed. Fear-driven obedience. Light flashed. Seeds sown out of pressure. Light flashed. Fastings commanded by man, not God. Light flashed. Believing threats of death if you ever leave. Light flashed. Each time a line lit up, I felt pain, not physical pain, but a deep sorrow, like something inside me was breaking. I fell to my knees, crying, "Lord, I never meant to make any covenant. I thought I was obeying you. I thought I was serving under your prophet." Jesus knelt slightly, not to the ground, but in front of me, lowering himself just enough so I would look into his eyes. He spoke with sorrow. "Adesuwa, obedience is worship. Where your obedience goes, your covenant follows." My tears flowed uncontrollably. He continued, his voice firm yet filled with compassion. "Your loyalty shifted from my word to a man's voice. Your faith moved from my spirit to his instructions. You feared him more than you feared me. You trusted his warnings more than my scriptures. And fear is a covenant." I covered my face, trembling. I had never heard such truth in my life. Jesus stretched out his hand again. The scroll zoomed closer. Now I could see scenes, like videos, of moments I had forgotten. The day the prophet told me not to travel unless I gave a special seed. The day he warned me that God would punish anyone who left the ministry. The night he declared that all members must submit their dreams to him for interpretation. The times I obeyed instructions I never confirmed with God. Jesus said, "Every time you obeyed what I did not command, you strengthened the chain around your soul." Then he paused and pointed to one specific line on the scroll, a line written in dark, heavy, spiritual ink. Covenant of dependence. Jesus looked at me deeply. "This is the strongest one. You believed you could not pray, survive, or hear God without the prophet. In the Spirit, that dependence became a bond, and bonds become covenants. My heart shattered. I whispered through tears, "Lord, I didn't know." Jesus answered with a voice that shook the room, "That is why my people perish, not because Satan is powerful, but because they do not discern the covenants they are entering." Then he did something unexpected. He reached out his hand toward the scroll. A powerful beam of light shot from his palm. The scroll shook violently, chains around it snapped, the dark signatures began to fade. Jesus said, "Come, now I will show you what this hidden covenant did to your soul." The room changed again. A wind began to swirl around me. The ground beneath my feet opened like a vision screen, and Jesus said, "Look." When Jesus said, "Look," the ground beneath us turned transparent, like a spiritual screen opening into the unseen world. What I saw made my entire soul tremble. Below my feet was me, my spiritual form, but not as I knew myself. My spirit was standing in a dark room, chained from head to toe. Thick chains wrapped around my wrists. Heavy chains were tied around my ankles. A chain tightened around my neck, and one long, ugly chain connected from my back to a dark silhouette, shaped like the prophet I served. I gasped, "Lord, is that me?" Jesus nodded gently. "This is what the hidden covenant did to your soul." The chains began to glow with inscriptions, words written in fire. I leaned closer and read the first one, Chain 1, Fear. Every time the prophet said, "If you leave this ministry, your life will scatter," the chain tightened around my neck. Jesus said, "Fear is not advice, it is bondage." A second chain lit up, Chain 2, Dependence. Every time I waited for prophetic approval before making simple decisions, like traveling, praying, sewing, or fasting, the chain connecting me to the silhouette tightened. Jesus spoke, "Dependence on man creates spiritual slavery." The third chain glowed. Chain 3, Spiritual blindness. I saw scenes where God tried to warn me through dreams, scriptures, and even people, but the chain over my eyes would thicken, blocking the light. Jesus said, "You could not hear me clearly because you trusted another voice above mine." Then a fourth chain burned in letters of fire. Chain 4, Emotional manipulation. I remembered moments when guilt drove me more than faith, moments when pressure pushed me into fasting God never commanded, moments when fear made me sow seeds out of panic. Jesus said, "Manipulation is a silent covenant. What controls your emotions controls your spirit." Then the largest chain lit up, wrapped around my entire torso. Chain 5, Idolizing man. It showed all the moments I exalted the prophet more than God, when I believed his dreams over mine, when I trusted his warnings more than the Bible, when I feared displeasing him, when I believed blessings came from him. Jesus spoke with sorrow. Idolatry is not always bowing down. Sometimes it is trusting a man to do what only I can do. I fell to the floor, weeping so heavily my whole body shook. "I didn't know, Lord. I didn't know." Jesus knelt beside me, not in worship, but in deep compassion, and said, "That is why deception is dangerous. It blinds good people. It traps sincere hearts. But today I break these chains." He stretched his right hand toward my bound spiritual image. Light shot forth like lightning. The chains snapped, one by one. Fear shattered, dependence broken, blindness melted, manipulation cut open, idolatry destroyed. With each chain that broke, I felt something heavy lifting from my real spirit. It was like inhaling for the first time in years. I screamed in relief. My entire spiritual body glowed with a warmth I had never felt before. Jesus stood and said, "I am the one who sets free, but freedom begins with truth. Now go. Warn my people. Many are entering covenants through obedience they never questioned." Suddenly he touched my forehead. A surge of power rushed through me like fire and water flowing at the same time. The entire vision collapsed. The ground closed. The chamber of hell disappeared. Everything went dark. All I heard was his final command, "Return." and I descended like a falling star. My spirit was pulled upward, faster than I could comprehend. Suddenly I awoke, gasping for air, in my bedroom. My husband was at my side, tears streaming. My 3 children were staring at me, frightened. I was alive, but my heart was racing. I had been shown the depth of deception and the danger that comes from trusting men over God. I sat up, still trembling, and whispered, "Jesus saved me." But so many are still trapped. Over the next few days, I meditated on everything I had seen in hell. Do not idolize any pastor or prophet. Do not submit to instructions that contradict God's word. Test every prophetic message and every spirit. Beware of fear-driven obedience. It is a spiritual trap. Your covenant is with Jesus alone. Protect it. I realized that obedience without discernment is deadly. Many believers obey out of fear, respect, or manipulation, not out of love for God. That obedience can bind them to hellish covenants they never truly agreed to. I felt God calling me to share this testimony. I began writing, speaking, and praying publicly to warn others. I wanted to reach mothers, wives, ministers, and children, anyone who could be unknowingly trapped in fear-based covenants. I pray for them as I pray for you now. Lord, deliver your people from the hidden chains of manipulation. Give them discernment and courage to obey you alone. If this testimony touches your heart, do not delay in seeking God personally. Do not trust men more than His word. Do not allow fear to dictate your obedience. God is calling His people back to true covenant obedience, a covenant of love, faith, and freedom in Jesus Christ alone. And as for me, Sister Adesuwa James, I am alive to warn the church because what I saw in hell is real. It is terrifying, it is urgent, and it is happening to those who do not discern.